There is an in-ear monitor company out there that has recently tried their hand at a microphone. That company is BASN, and the microphone is the BMS2, and we're going to try it out today. This is a large diaphragm condenser microphone with a 34mm capsule, and it comes in at a pretty reasonable $200 on Amazon. But I'm going to be shallow here for just a quick second and talk about the look of this microphone. It's kind of like an Aston mixed with a Lewitt. It is a great looking microphone with the Lewitt style body and the Aston style grill. I have the blue one, and this blue color has been my favorite color for quite a while, so I'm very happy with it, but it does also come in black. And just so you know, as per usual, I will be doing some sound comparisons to the BASN BMS2, probably use some Lewitt microphones, maybe a couple Røde mics, and I don't know, we'll see. We'll play it by ear. But when you plug this in and turn 48 volts of phantom power on, it does light up the front panel, and it looks very cool. And speaking of that panel, underneath it there are two selector buttons, one on the left, one on the right. The little button looking thing in the middle is not a button, so don't press that. But the button on the left controls the attenuation pad. It starts at 0, but it can go to -6 and -12 decibels. And the right button, not the correct button, but the button on the right, controls the EQ options, which is essentially just two flavors of a high-pass filter. It of course starts in flat mode. The first press on that button will enable a 40 Hz high-pass filter, and then if you press it one more time, it will enable a 300 Hz high-pass filter. And this is just a quick example of the first option for the high-pass filter, the 40 Hz option. And now I press the button one more time to enable the 300 Hz high-pass filter, and now I'm going to press it one more time and go to flat mode. But when I was clicking through those, I actually noticed that it doesn't have a super loud click or anything when you enable one of them. Like now I'm in flat mode, now I'm in the 40 Hz mode, now I'm in the 300 Hz mode. That's pretty quiet for this. And the same does go for the attenuation pad. Here is -6 and here is -12. It's really not that bad considering that most of them, when you switch it, it's like kadoink. So it's pretty good. But if you do decide that the BASN BMS2 is right for you, it will come with a nice storage and travel case. It will come with a custom shock mount, as well as a 5/8 to 3/8 inch microphone stand adapter, a 10-foot XLR cable, a branded storage pouch, a windscreen, and the microphone itself. Now when it comes to the build quality of the accessories that are included with this, they're all fantastic. For real, can you just look at the logo on that right now? That is quality. That is great. But I will say there are definitely way more weatherproofed and nicer cases out there, but this one's fine. It's good. But the fact that this comes with a storage pouch and a storage box is awesome. This storage pouch is padded. It is branded so you can easily find it. The shock mount is great. It has very little plastic on it. It's actually mostly metal. Now the build quality of the microphone itself leaves a little bit to be desired. Not. Do you hear that? I got him with the not. I'm not talking to anyone right now. I don't know why I did that. It's so nice. It is, honestly, it's shocking when you pick this up how heavy it is, and the build quality is just great on all of this. But personally, I'm very interested in how this is going to perform in some of the tests that I do. So let's go ahead and get into those. Right now I'm exactly 3 feet away from the BASN mic, and now I'm stepping a little bit closer, and I would assume I'm about 2 feet away now, and now I'm closer to 1 foot away, and now I'm 6 inches away, and now I'm right on top of the BMS2. Now I'm exactly 1 foot away from the BMS2, and I'm going to send some Plosives directly into the microphone, which I wouldn't recommend doing with this microphone, but we gotta find out. We gotta find out how bad it is, or good, who knows. Planters pickled peanuts is. Planters pickled peanuts is. Now I'm 6 inches from the microphone. Planters pickled peanuts is. Planters pickled peanuts is. Now I'm 6 inches away with my air aiming past the microphone. Planters pickled peanuts is. Planters pickled peanuts is. Now I'm exactly 6 inches away from this microphone, and sadly I did cover up the beautiful grill with this windscreen, but what are you gonna do? Planters pickled peanuts is. Planters pickled peanuts is. I just feel like every time I do a plosive test, I'm just staring into your soul, just saying peanuts is, and it's just ridiculous. That was actually a quick example of the microphone with the windscreen on and the tone of the microphone, and we'll see if it changes at all versus this with no protection at all. And now I'm on this microphone at 0 degrees, and then I'm going to just slowly turn it and see how it sounds. So we're slowly turning it. We're at 90 degrees now, and then we're going to go to 180. There we go. Now we're going to hit up 270, and then we're going to go back to 0. Since this is a cardioid microphone, the best place that it rejects sound is directly behind the mic. So that's where I'm banging on some MX Cherry Blues, seeing if it'll reject any of this. And yeah, it doesn't seem like it, so not a great streaming mic. Unless you aren't going to use a super obnoxiously clicky keyboard. Now here's an example, aka everything you've heard in this review, of a microphone in a pretty well acoustically treated room. Now let's go out into a completely untreated room and see how this mic does. Now I'm in a completely untreated, pretty reverberant and big room. Here's how it sounds when I'm about 6 inches away from the microphone. My cat is running around just being insane. But if I get closer to the microphone, you're going to hear some of that room noise just go away because the microphone is more focused on my voice. If I were to take a step back, you would notice more room noise and more cats running around. Oh, there's a cute kitty. Hi. But I would say that this room is pretty much a worst case scenario when it comes to recording. So if it can sound good in here, it'll probably sound good wherever you're at. I mean, no promises though. But let's get back into a better sounding room. Now, I don't mean to alarm you or be over dramatic. But this next test is the most important one by far. So turn up your speakers and let's get a kitty purr test going. Now let's go ahead and do a couple guitar tests. Now just to jump in here really quick and make a slight adjustment / warning, I guess. When I shot this comparison, I was under the impression that the Amazon price was $200 and the BASN price was $269. But one thing that I do talk about in my review section is that BASN is having some sort of sale or price decrease or whatever, that it's going to be $140, but I am going to assume, and I think it's safe to assume, that it's going to go back up to $200, but just ignore me when I say $269. So now we're just going to jump into the comparison section of this video. Currently, I have the BASN going against the 440 Purr from Lewitt. Now, you might be wondering why I don't have the Røde plugged in, and it's simply just because these two are essentially identical in price, whereas the Røde is $350, but if you do like the tone of the 440 Purr, just know that you will get the exact same sound out of the Røde. Both of these can be found regularly on Amazon for $200. However, it might be that the $200 version of the Lewitt comes with the hard mount rather than the shock mount. I could be wrong, but I think so. But both of these microphones' accessories are fantastic. The BASN comes with the hard case and everything, and the Lewitt does come with more options like this pop filter and this windscreen, whereas the BASN just comes with the one windscreen. But currently I'm 6 inches away from both of these microphones, and I'm recording into the Focusrite Scarlett 2i2 4th generation into Adobe Audition. But having these two next to each other, there is definitely some influence that was pulled from the Lewitt to the BASN, in my opinion. But I am very interested to hear these back to back. Now we have the BASN BMS2 going against the Lewitt LCT 240 Pro, and I know I just had another Lewitt microphone go against this. What's the point? Well, these microphones are different, especially in the price. Now the BMS2 does go for $200 to $269, whereas the 240 Pro goes for $100. And yes, there are absolutely differences between the 440 Purr and the 240 Pro. I actually have a video that I talk about that. But the biggest difference is going to be capsule size. This is nearing a small diaphragm condenser. It's not quite there, whereas the BASN is a large diaphragm condenser microphone. But I was mostly just curious about how the BASN would stack up against the 240 Pro. Now we have the BASN BMS2 going against the Røde NT1 Signature Series. The NT1 Signature Series goes for $159, which is absolutely insane, especially for everything that you get with it. But if you do want to learn more about the NT1 Signature Series, I do have a video I'll link down below. And I have heard from a few personal friends of mine that the NT1 SS has not been lasting super great. I would say that Røde is the best at getting back to you and getting a new product in your hands and taking and accepting returns. Now this has just been a quick back and forth between the BASN and the NT1 SS. Once again, I have been on the 2i2 4th gen. Now I have the BASN BMS2 going up against the Aston Spirit. I always want to say Origin because that's the one that I'm most familiar with, but this is the Spirit, which does have 3 different polar patterns. It has cardioid, which I'm going to stay in for this test, bidirectional, and omnidirectional. And from what I could find online, it seems like the Spirit usually goes for $350 to $380, whereas the BASN goes for $200 to $269. Yeah, these aren't in the same price category, but if you are looking for a multi-pattern microphone, you could check out the Spirit. This is actually the second time I've ever plugged this microphone in, so I don't know. I can't give you a recommendation. But now the comparison section is done, so let's just move on to my review. I don't have a lot of bad things to say about this microphone, but I'll go ahead and start there. And this is a bit more of a negative-ish thing. A negative-ish is that the noise floor isn't great. On the spec sheet, it actually says that it is less than 18 dBA, which is honestly totally acceptable. However, I did find that it's about 3.7-ish decibels louder than that. Now, I completely understand that does not sound like much. That doesn't sound like a big difference at all. However, take the Audio-Technica AT2020, for example. It has a 20 decibel noise floor. There's a lot of 20s in that statement. And I did notice a bit more of a noise floor level from this in the comparison. So I actually put it up against this, and it was actually a little bit louder than the AT2020. That's not to say the BMS2 is bad or that it's not as good as the AT2020 for that matter. I mean, there are a lot more things that go into a microphone, like the sound of it. But sadly, it is a little bit more noisy than I would like. And just as a quick example, I'll put the AT2020 against the BMS2, and I'll just shut up for a second, and you can listen to the noise floors. The next negative-ish con are the high-pass filters. They're kind of odd, and I don't feel like they're represented properly, but I think that it would be nice if it did have some sort of curve on the spec sheet that it would follow, so I would know definitively if it's right or not. But I would assume that if you turn on the 40 hertz mode, it's going to be more bass available than the 300 hertz mode. I would assume that, but the truth is that they are very similar. And if you go to the guitar section, I might be misremembering this, but I feel like the 300 hertz mode had even more bass than the 40 hertz high pass filter. I could be wrong. But one thing I do want to give BASN props on is the fact that these switches literally are soundless, essentially. Like, you can switch between 0 and -6 or even -12 mode, and it is basically not even noticeable. It is awesome that way. But that really is it when it comes to the negatives of the sound. And when it comes to the accessories, I would say I don't have anything negative to say. I really like the hard case, the soft case, the shock mount. It's all very nice. Now for the actual sound of this microphone, I feel like it held its own in the comparison. If you liked one of the Lewitts or the Røde a little bit more than this, I can't blame you for that. And if you liked this a little bit more than those, I also can't blame you for that. It just is up to snuff as far as sound quality goes, and I feel like some people will absolutely like that. I do feel like a lot of the $200 condenser microphones are completely acceptable and they produce good quality. So with a company like BASN that has been making IEMs or in-ear monitors for a little while, but this is their first entry into the microphone world, as an unknown company, I feel like you just have to give a bit more value than companies like Røde, Purr, or Lewitt. And yes, I will be the one to say I think that the BMS2 is worth the $200, but I just don't know if it's going to grab much of a market considering the NT1 Signature Series is $159. So in my opinion, that is the goal weight. That is the fighting weight right there. You got to beat that. You have to beat $159. But some very good news is that this microphone is going to be on sale for $170 or $200 with a pair of IEMs that are valued around $90, I believe. But the BB-SAW rating I will give the BMS2 is between a 7.5 and an 8.5, depending on the sale price. I know, that is very weird, but BASN has told me a couple different prices, so I don't know, and I'm just gonna leave it at that. But hopefully this video helped you out. Thank you to all the subscribers. Thank you, BASN, and the biggest thank you goes to the audio hotline members. I swear to shit, y'all are the cutest, and I kiss every one of you. See ya.